Welcome to a new episode of HKEXVoice, our podcast series featuring insights from our senior executives and industry leaders on Hong Kong's financial markets. I'm your host, 𝗙ří𝗹𝗹𝒻. HKEX has just published a consultation paper on severe weather trading, with an aim to maintain normal operations of the Hong Kong cash and derivatives markets under severe weather conditions. This is to enhance Hong Kong's competitiveness as a best-in-class trading and risk management venue. We are very pleased to have back here with us Mr. Wilfred Yiu, our co-COO and head of Equities, to discuss with us why it is important to the future development of our markets with this new initiative. Welcome back to our podcast, Wilfred.
Thank you, Jeffrey. It's good to be here.
So, Wilfred, for the benefit of our listeners who may not be familiar with Hong Kong and our markets, could you give us some context about why we're coming up with this proposal?
Sure. Severe weather conditions, these are including typhoons, black rains, affect Hong Kong normally a couple times a year. And during some of these extreme events, quite a few of the government services are suspended, and schools, offices, businesses, and financial markets are closed. HKEX here, we have a very well-established set of trading arrangement in place for such events, and those have remained largely unchanged over many, many years. And since 2018, what we did observe is severe weather events have forced market closures on around 11 occasions. Wow. So with that, now we are seeing is those will get to some full-day market suspensions, and during such trading suspensions, investors of our market will not be able to manage their portfolio and manage their risk during those times. And these are the kind of scenarios that their underlying positions remain open, and therefore we will need to find solutions to help them to alleviate those concerns. So it's also worth noting that most of other major markets, including those in mainland China, can maintain market trading under severe weather. Market closure due to severe weather or natural disasters for global exchanges are mostly determined on a case-by-case basis. So when we think about the design of the trading arrangement for severe weather, we have some fundamental principles that we need to put in place. For example, personnel's safety are always taken as a first considerations in the design.
So, Wilfred, could you tell us a bit more about this proposal? Why specifically the need to change the mechanism now?
Yeah, as you know, Hong Kong is an international financial center, and we have seen tremendous amount of growth of both global investors and mainland investors in our markets. And the participation and product offerings are increasingly getting more diverse as well. And as you know, our Stock Connect program has been actually moving from strength to strength.
Yes.
And with that expansions, we can only see an increased two-way capital flows. And with that, any kind of market suspension events due to severe weather, and it not only means it closure for Hong Kong markets, but it also restrict international investors from accessing the mainland onshore markets via Stock Connect, and at the same time for mainland investors who are accessing Hong Kong's markets. So if you look at the trading volume of today, what we are seeing is, northbound is on average is actually more than 100 billion renminbi per day, and southbound we're talking more than 30 billion Hong Kong dollars per day. So with that, cash development in cash market, we already see the need. And then away from the cash market, we're looking into the derivative market. We also seen significant growth in our derivative markets, and in both products diversity and also liquidity. So in the past few years, we introduced a suite of futures and options products with international underliers that track MSCI indices. And these are also important contracts like MSCI A50 futures, the Hang Seng Tech suites, etc. And these increasingly diverse and international product offering have in turn contributed to more diverse and international participation in our market. And our derivative markets has sustained growth momentum. And as of September 2023, it was a record 9-month ADV of 1.4 million contracts. 1,400,000 contracts traded every day. Now, so that gives you a sense of how important Hong Kong's markets in channeling two-way capital flows, and Hong Kong as the region preeminent international risk management center and derivative trading center.
Wilfred, you mentioned the very increasing international and mainland participation in our financial markets. Hong Kong has really been developing that role as an international financial center. How do you see this severe weather trading arrangement proposal help to solidify and further strengthen this important role for Hong Kong?
Sure. As you mentioned, Jeffrey, I think we are all talking about the long-term competitiveness of the Hong Kong market itself.
For sure.
And I mentioned also about the growing franchise and the prospective franchise that are willing and wanting to come into Hong Kong markets. And we need to pre-clear a set of these conditions to allow more capital to transact here in Hong Kong. Now, for example, our derivative market has got a lot more internationalized. So many of our derivative products are tracking underlying markets around the region and the world. It's tracking Japan, tracking mainland China, Singapore, etc. Now, if our markets are shut, but the underlying cash market are actually open for trading, our investor will subject to many risks. Say they won't be able to respond to changes of those market dynamics. So when we think about that, and alongside with the totality of the market development need, there is broad consensus in Hong Kong that we must move forward with a way to keep our markets open during severe weather. And that, alongside with the support of the Hong Kong SAR government, our financial regulators, and the industry, we are very pleased that we can come up with a proposal here, a proposed operating model for public consultation that will enable us to keep our cash and derivative market open during such time. So our proposal, as I mentioned, is developed alongside with a lot of participations from the government, from the regulators, financial institutions, the market participants in a part of the severe weather trading task force itself that was set up earlier. So that has already taken a lot of inputs from very thoughtful comments from the group.
Wilfred, of course, a proposal like this will have to have a lot of input from various stakeholders, and it is good to see that the task force was set up to help us in guiding us into preparing this model for consultation. Could you tell us what were some of the key considerations or challenges that were discussed in the task force and helped in terms of fine-tuning what we are presenting?
Personnel safety, Jeffrey, is always a paramount consideration at the core of this proposal. And therefore, we are proposing that will not be any physical outlets providing services during these trading in a severe weather event. And that most operations should be conducted remotely, off-site, and online to the furthest extent that is possible. And that is based on that fundamental principle. At HKEXI, we can confirm that our systems are fully accessible with the remote network in a secure and robust manner. And similarly, other financial infrastructures, such as FPS, etc., will also be made available during such severe weather events. And I think the work-from-home arrangements during the pandemics has given us some very precious references and experience, and actually enabling us to be able to cope with and operate in a remote setup environment. Importantly, there are other considerations, obviously, to enable a fully functional market during severe weather situations. And most importantly, the money transfer arrangements and the availability of banking services, as highlighted by many industry professionals. We are pleased to note that through our engagement in the task force, the Hong Kong Monetary Authority and the Hong Kong Association of Banks have committed that relevant banking services to support market trading and settlement, such as e-check clearing and online banking services, will be available by most local banks to facilitate clearing participants in fulfilling all these money transfer, banking services, operational requirements, even though no physical branch services are available during those times.
So, Wilfred, could you elaborate more on this proposed operating model for trading under severe weather?
Sure. In our current model, severe weather conditions will no longer have automatic consequential impact on the continuity of trading, which means trading will be normal. We intend for our securities and derivative markets, and by the way, that includes Stock Connect, northbound and southbound services, derivative holiday trading, derivative after-hour trading, to remain open and available to all investors. under such conditions. The trading, post-trade listing arrangement will largely be the same as those as a regular trading days, with some necessary adjustments. And these adjustments are needed because we were not going to have all the physical outlets available, yes, obviously. But at the same time, we still need to ensure market's overall operational resiliency and safety of our market participants. So I'll give some examples here so that you have some context. For the participants who are unable to deposit physical securities to the Office of Share Registry for settlement purposes, we are proposing that is a certain buying exemption provision be available. And in addition, if the last registration date for some corporate actions be a day that falls on that severe event day, be postponed rather than be operating on that day, because it's also constrained by the availability of physical outlets. So these are kind of examples you can imagine, that we need to make some fine-tuning to that. But regardless, during such severe weather trading days, we will make the public and also global investors available, aware of our trading market remains operating normal and the services being made available. And any kind of other changes are needed, we will remind global investors of what are those arrangements.
Wilfred, going back to a very important consideration, personnel safety, as you mentioned, that is extremely important when you come up with this proposal. How is HKEX and the authorities addressing this concern specifically?
Yeah, sure. As I mentioned previously, personnel safety is a topmost consideration in our proposal. But at the same time, we have just gone through the pandemics, and we have learned a lot and adapt a lot during those times when actually being physical present is somewhat restrictive, right? So those technologies and policies that have been developed during those times actually help enable us to allow more remote working and making it actually more common within the investors and also market participants. And they are now, today, using a lot more electronic channels for trading, clearing, and other market operations. So I think that is setting us up well to know that there are precedents that we can draw on those experience to implement as much as possible remote capabilities and avoiding people being on site to do a lot of those work. Now, at the same time, we understand that market participants will need adequate preparation to ensure remote operations, as they and their clients will need to ensure they have the ability to transfer funds without requiring a lot of these physical services. And therefore, we here at HKEX, we are always ready to provide any relevant technical support to support their transition to remote operations.
Now, Wilfred, moving on to clearing and settlement, I think there were some suggestions in the market about the possibility of deferring clearing and settlement during severe weather conditions. Now, is that possible?
Well, the reality is when we look at trading and settlement together, it is part of the entire market operations as risk has been taken or being managed, right? And they go hand in hand together. As such, it is not ideal to separate those trading and settlement as if they are separate processes, because they are actually indeed fundamentally integrated. So if, for example, you can see that some participants, they have, for example, obligations that they have to pay during settlements, and others may be expected to receive payments during such settlements. So any delays in these settlements will impact the receiving and payment of funds, and therefore remaining kind of risk exposure that is hard to be dealt with for a lot of the market participants and investors at the end. And we are always thinking about how we can have the best support for our investors' services. So on a normal trading day, the positions and corresponding mark-to-market values of investors, EP and CPs, and all these things can be changing. And HKEX, we ourselves, we are acting as the central clearing counterparty for Hong Kong securities and derivative markets, and as well as a lot of other international central clearing party. to ensure that there's no systemic risk for clearinghouse and the overall market settlement procedures, therefore must be conducted on an every trading day basis and margin must be collected from clearinghouse participants. And this is just fundamental principle number one. Since we cannot predict the occurrence of a severe weather event and we cannot connect margin from participants similar to the current practice ahead of a holiday, for example,
of course.
right? So these are the kind of constraint that we need to be operating in and be very clear and upfront with the participants. And importantly, banks and other financial infrastructure operators have already confirmed that they can provide online and electronic services during severe weather to support market participants' settlement and fund transfer arrangements. And that's good.
So, Wilfred, when are we actually going to be implementing this reform, and how will HKEX be supporting the market to enable the changes?
Currently what we're doing is actually a consultation. The consultation period will last for 8 weeks. So we welcome all of you to provide comments on this consultation. We will then consolidate all these feedback and make any necessary changes to the model in consultation with the government and also financial market regulators. So in order to ensure a lot of our market participants proper access to HKEX systems and platform remotely, we will provide technical support to our participants and arrange rounds of testing ahead of the implementation. In terms of timing, we hope to implement the proposal by July 2024 at the earliest.
That's great, Wilfred. Any further comments before we let you go?
I want to highlight that this is a consultation process, and we are presenting a way forward. While I believe that is consensus that the market needs to move away from severe weather trading suspensions, we need to make sure that the detailed arrangements are fit for purpose. We are therefore very keen to get the market's feedback on what they think works and what they think won't work in the proposed model, and what kind of difficulties that they may face, and what further considerations that we need to make, so that we can push forward with this important market enhancements alongside with the market participants, alongside with the government and our regulators as well.
Wilfred, I think that's all the time we have, but it's certainly been a very busy year for you and your team in implementing a lot of different infrastructure enhancements for our markets. We look forward to receiving all the market feedback to this very important proposal for our markets. For all our new listeners, if you want to learn more about this podcast or HKEX's markets, please visit us at our website at hkex.com.hk. From all of us at HKEXVoice, thank you for listening and keep an ear out for our next episode. So long.